of excuses. Turn it up, the Ango show, here we go. Rumor mill spin, every little sin. What's the new fallout? Who took a route out? Fans scream loud, make the show proud. Backstage drama, full of armor. Who's the charmer? Tag teams break dreams, plot schemes, injuries and mysteries, chasing victories. Gossip wild like a runaway child. Turn it up, the Ango show, here we go. Rumor mill spin, every little sin. What's the new fallout? Who took a route out? Fans scream loud, make the show proud. Big moves, pay-per-views, breaking all the news. Scandals revealed, deal sealed, who'll be healed? Trash talkers, night stalkers, ring walkers. Next big match, can't scratch this batch. Turn it up, the Ango show, here we go. Rumor mill spin, every little sin. What's the new fallout? Who took a route out? Fans scream loud, make the show proud. Big moves, pay-per-views, breaking all the news. Scandals revealed.
And we are live, everybody. Welcome back to the Ango show. And tonight we are live talking about WWE NXT. We brought back Billy TKO, so shout out to Billy. Last night we talked about WWE Raw on Netflix. Tonight NXT clicked on the reset button. They delivered a stacked episode. Clearly, Shawn Michaels has a vision for NXT. That vision is coming to life. Before we begin, I need to let the chat know that you guys need to fucking go off tonight, because honestly, like, I put it in the chat. I said, you guys got to motivate me. We need to go off. I need to see everybody in the chat literally just being crazy. And we got all the emotes on there. We got all the emojis and all that good stuff. And as we did yesterday, members will get priority in the chat. So if you're not a member, you should become a member. If you don't want to be a member, you're going to miss out on some good perks. And listen, the final boss showed up in NXT tonight. So of course we got to talk about that. I know everybody's going to have their thoughts. I know everybody's going to want to debate and everybody's going to want to argue. So if you're going to do it, drop a super chat, call me out. Super chats, $5 or more activates TTS. I don't want to talk too much about shout outs and all that good stuff. You guys could join Discord and get merchandise and do all that stuff. Links are in the description. Billy.
Yes, sir.
NXT, what you think?
Great show. Great show. Good wrestling show. I'm a big fan of it. I haven't watched NXT. I've kept up with it, but I haven't watched it in quite some time. So this is my first episode back, and I think they did a great job coming into the new year. We obviously seen some transitions going on there, which I was a huge fan of. So I'm not gonna lie, I was very, very pleased with this show.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I mean, listen, I keep saying it. NXT is the most consistent brand in all of professional wrestling. Honestly, sometimes even more consistent than Raw and SmackDown. They're obviously more consistent than Dynamite and Collision. This is a show that if you pay attention to every single week, the storytelling, the logic, everything is there. And tonight was the night where they officially pressed the reset button. Obviously, if you guys see the title, The Rock showed up.
Yep.
What was like your reaction to seeing how The Rock was used throughout the night, and then obviously the promo at the end?
I mean, so overall, it was everything that I expected it to be. Even at the end, when we seen him like address the Cody stuff,
yeah,
I kind of figured that was going to be the case. Nothing like crazy over the top. I thought he was utilized great. I think him playing in obviously with his daughter and stuff like that. And Ava, that was amazing. That was such a cool moment. The moment with Ethan Page, like Ethan Page talking about how The Rock was always like an inspiration to him.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many little tidbits. I think The Rock played like a perfect role here. He did essentially what I thought he was going to do, though. He came, waved the company flag, did his thing.
Yeah. I appreciate what he said about the Cody thing. And I actually wrote down, I actually copied and pasted like the actual quote. The Rock is the final boss, thinking 20 steps ahead. So the best thing for them to do is know their role and shut their mouths and enjoy the ride that The Rock is taking them on. So just like that, The Rock explained why he was buddy with Cody Rhodes last night. I appreciate that.
And it's so funny. Yeah, me too, because I think it's really funny how us as like wrestling fans as a whole, like we jump so quickly to conclusion to just be like, oh, well, what's going on? Again, we had a little back and forth on Twitter talking about just let it play out. These things have to play out. I understand that last night it was what it was. People wanted to go on Twitter and make noise, and that's essentially all it was. It was just people on Twitter making noise.
Yeah, I think for sure. There's definitely truth to that. I mean, for me personally, when I saw The Rock tonight, like the exciting part of that was the Ethan Page thing, because Ethan Page is a very, like, it's well documented. He's very inspired by The Rock. Ethan Page, you know, let's have a little bit of fun this stream, guys. What do you think, chat? I think we should start with some shit talk. Ethan Page on Rampage or Ethan Page on NXT, you having a segment with the final boss, arguably the biggest wrestler of all time, Hollywood actor. You know, I think there should be a lot said there. If you're Ethan Page, you are probably shitting yourself with excitement, because that's, I mean, you literally just had the most ideal segment and he got the rub, right? You know, you're going to be on the main roster one day thing. So I like it. I like The Rock, the way he was utilized on NXT tonight. I don't know if this is going to play a role into viewership or how that's going to work for NXT, but I will say I was very, very pleased to know that, like,
I'll tell you what,
he was there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that ending, it's going to be clipped. Talking about Cody, that's going to be all over the internet.
For sure.
Yeah.
And look at that. It's, I mean, the visual, I mean, just look at the thumbnail for this stream. It's literally a picture of The Rock with New Year's Evil behind them. So, I mean, that just goes to show you, like, how crazy that is, because The Rock is, I mean, we've never seen him on NXT. NXT is the developmental system nobody really pays attention to. So, I mean, that's not fair. People definitely pay attention to it. But in comparison to Raw or SmackDown, it's obviously the third brand. Absolutely. I will say this, though. This was a beautiful marketing tactic by WWE, because The Rock showing up to NXT, and then, by the way, you have Giulia win, you have Obafemi win, you have Lexis King win. Like, if I'm one of the talent on this show, this is arguably the biggest episode of NXT they've ever done. And it's led by the biggest superstar of all time. So, you know, if I'm a talent, I'm looking at this as a great marketing tactic for WWE, and in a way it positions this talent on another level that is just really incredible. So I absolutely love that. And I think WWE nailed it as far as that goes, because, you know, it's tough. It's tough. NXT is on the CW, and NXT is growing, and they got a lot of momentum, but at the same time too, they're never going to get the same amount of respect that Raw or SmackDown gets. No, but it is still such a, like, it's if you enjoy pro wrestling, and, you know, maybe SmackDown and Raw don't offer it the way that they do, if you really want to go get, like, good professional wrestling matches with good stories too, let's not take away from the stories that are being told on there. For sure. But I really think the wrestling on there is, like, it's top tier. It's good stuff. You know, listen, hold on. It is. To be fair, it's not on the same level as some of these matches you get on Dynamite. It's not. No. It's not. But it is very good wrestling. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sitting here comparing. I'm not comparing to AEW. Yeah. I'm not at all. I'm talking about through the WWE brand. Yeah. If maybe you're watching Raw or SmackDown and you're hoping for, like, these top tier matches, you're not going to get them necessarily there because they're more story driven, things of that nature. You'll get good matches. For sure. But NXT really offers good professional wrestling inside the WWE brand. For sure. And tonight we witnessed that. Absolutely. Just a quick shout out to Justin Kennington, member for 22 months. He says, could we see Ethan Page and Josh Alexander reunite as the North in WWE? The contract situation for Josh Alexander is definitely a big question mark. We know he will be a free agent. It doesn't mean he's leaving TNA, but I think Ethan Page and Josh Alexander being together in WWE would be huge. But that would be a main roster thing. If you're trying to reinvigorate the tag team division, you put them on the main roster, and then eventually they could split, and Josh Alexander could go and have bangers for the IC title, that type of thing. But I would definitely love to see it. I think if Josh Alexander doesn't go to NXT, Raw, or SmackDown, it's a disappointment. And if I was Josh Alexander, I would be ringing up the phone and calling Ethan Page and saying, what's your experience like? You worked both places. The truth is, I mean, this is not me trying to like shit on AEW, but if you're Ethan Page, you go from TNA to AEW and you probably think that's a big upgrade, right? And then you realize that you're just another guy behind,
floating around.
Yeah, floating around. And then they kind of left him behind a little bit. So then you kind of look at what he's done in NXT. They immediately launch him into the world title scene. And even when he drops the world title, he's still a relevant character on TV. Ethan Page's time in NXT is very limited, but he's going to be a stud on the main roster. So
For sure.
Definitely Josh Alexander going to NXT should be the thing that happens. Obafemi's going to need somebody to compete with, and Obafemi's now the world champion. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that, right? Like, you're going to have to build up their main event scene, and I'll get your reaction to this, but I have been saying for a while that NXT's men's world title scene is kind of disappointing. I don't think they've built it up that great. The women, on the other hand, are the stars.
Oh.
And
yeah, for sure.
I'm taking shots at every brand, by the way, when I say this. If you're not looking at NXT's women's division and what they've done on that show with the women, you're a failure, because Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, you don't see what you see in NXT when it comes to the women. And the women took over the entire first hour of NXT. It's a 2 hour show. I was about to
say, the first three matches that I watched on tonight's show were all women's matches. Great, by the way. Amazing matches.
Great matches. I mean, I think I have some weird thoughts about the Shotzi Tatum Paxley faction thing.
Yeah.
But when I look at how the women are utilized in NXT, I think that's like the blueprint, and I think every company should look at that as the model. That's just the reality, right?
Yeah, so, nobody's doing it better than NXT right now.
They're not. And I think for the men's division, it's not that there's a lack of stars, or not a lack of focus. The focus is there. I think there is a lack of stars that are like credible world champion kind of guys right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say Trick Williams is somebody that I've been invested in for a long time. I think he's great. I question if they're going to push him to the main roster right away.
Yeah.
He was a great champion and stuff like that. I know, like, we'll talk about it more later, but overall, like, Trick Williams, he's been a great star in NXT. I really want to talk about Obafemi and how he's just been skyrocketed through the NXT brand as a whole.
Yeah, well, let's kind of talk about it. Right in the beginning of NXT, Eddie Thorpe was attacked. It eventually comes out that he was attacked by Obafemi. This plays a role into the main event match, but Obafemi is the one who attacked him. Obafemi gets this world title opportunity against Trick, and Eddie Thorpe does find his way back into the match at some point. But
yeah,
Obafemi wins. And I think at this point, maybe you move Trick to the main roster, right? You got 3 hours SmackDown, 3 hour Raw. It might be time to move him up. Talk to me about Obafemi. What's your reaction, and what do you want to see from his reign?
So overall, I'll tell you, it, like I was just saying, you want to talk about somebody they just put a rocket on and blasted them through the division. Obafemi is that. I mean, they obviously see something inside Obafemi, which I think you would be a fool if you didn't. You could tell that this guy, he just kind of gets it. My reaction to him winning the championship is great. I mean, it's a new year. We got to let new stars develop inside of NXT. I think tonight was that. We literally kicked the year off inside of NXT with two new important champions. And we're going to see two other former champions probably head up to the main roster, which I can get behind. I'm excited for. And really kind of what we talked about a minute ago. Let's change the men's scene a little bit. You know, we need to start building those stars and making them feel like that stars, right?
Yeah.
Because eventually they're going to be superstars. We need to make them feel like stars here. So, yeah, no, I'm happy with Obafemi winning that match, and I really like the way that he won the match.
Yeah, it was a great finish, great match. It's hard to argue that Obafemi is ready for the main roster. Like, I think this guy is, like, we always hear this thing in the IWC, like, oh, Brock Lesnar's coming back, or when's Brock Lesnar coming back, or whatever. And it's like, WWE has their next Brock Lesnar in NXT. To be honest with you, Obafemi very early on didn't even need to be in NXT.
No, you could tell right away.
No, you could just tell he has it.
Yeah.
So I was very, very impressed with the fact that Obafemi won. I was very happy to see that WWE pulled the trigger on that, because I actually, going into the show, I thought for sure Trick would retain. And I'm curious now, because they're doing this in January, New Year's Evil, but TakeOver, Stand and Deliver, whatever. I know they don't call it TakeOver anymore, but Stand and Deliver WrestleMania weekend is usually when you get those big payoffs. And now it's like, I think it's very obvious the direction that they can go with Giulia and Stephanie Vicker for WrestleMania weekend. But then for Obafemi, I don't see somebody that immediately sticks out. So obviously we're months and months away, but is there an ideal feud that you would want to see for Obafemi at Stand and Deliver WrestleMania weekend?
So I think they're going to continue telling the Eddie Thorpe story with him. Obviously had him get attacked and stuff like that. Ideal though? I mean, there's nobody that necessarily sticks out to me right away. Obviously, we see somebody like Lexis King making his way through the ranks a little bit. You know, he wins the Heritage Cup tonight. Charlie Dempsey is somebody that I could truly get behind. I think he's great. But again, there's nobody that necessarily sticks out in my mind right away.
You know, it's interesting with you saying that, because to a certain degree, like, Charlie Dempsey would be like a very logical choice, but right now I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. That's my thing about it.
Which is kind of a shame, honestly. Like, there's really
Charlie Dempsey's great.
There's so many great talent there, but it's just like the way that they've been booked or presented in
Again,
a way.
that's the problem with the men's scene.
And it's not a problem that exists with the women.
No, because the women, I could give you numerous names that I believe belong in the world title picture. And the men, I'm sitting here questioning, like, I don't know.
You know, it's crazy with you saying this. It's like, before Giulia and Stephanie Vicker came into the company, and Zarya, before they all came into NXT, they already had such a stacked women's division. And it kind of goes to show you how some women have been kind of like left behind in a way. Nikita Lyons,
for sure.
When 2.0 was the thing, Nikita Lyons was like a sure thing. And then obviously she became injury prone, and now I don't think WWE will do that. But then I think too, it's interesting because you had at one point Nikita Lyons being someone there. I think you could even think of, obviously Cora Jade. And then of course you can't forget about,
Lola Vice.
Yeah. So like Lola Vice was one where at any point in time, if they want to call her up, she can get called up to the main roster and she'll be successful on the main roster. It's just so crazy to see how things have changed in the WWE, because now they've brought in these heavy hitters, and at any point in time, any one of these women could be a world champion in NXT.
I look at somebody like Kaylani Jordan, who is like somebody who's kind of green, but like is really starting to get it. You know what I mean?
Well, for sure.
Like they have a group of women that are really like green and are figuring it out fast.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a good problem to have.
The women are developing at a very rapid rate, and I think that's one of the reasons why NXT has become such a big win. Like for all of the women's wrestling that's out there, like NXT is just the place, and it just goes to show you how much the industry has changed. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and this person used to watch wrestling back in the day, and she would bring up like names from the past, and it was really funny because one of the things that she said was like, She's like, do the women like actually wrestle more these days? And I'm like, bro, turn it on and you'll see some cool shit. It's just a whole different atmosphere now. And NXT, I don't know why NXT took that approach. Like, I don't know if it was like coincidental or like if it was like on purpose, but they took this approach where the women have clearly become a main focal point for the brand. And it's tough because when we think of Obafemi, I don't want Obafemi to have a shitty reign due to the fact that people aren't ready for that position of feud with him. Whereas like with the women, Giulia, like I said, I mean, there's already so many people that are ready for Giulia. They can easily build upon that, you know? And so it's going to be really interesting to see the direction that they go with Obafemi moving forward, you know, like,
yeah, for sure.
Who knows? And of course, there's always potential new signings coming in and stuff like that. But it's something I definitely pay attention to. Really quick, I want to read a comment from one of members on the channel. Laws says, I think Trick Williams is not ready for the main roster. He should stay in NXT for another year. And
so that's actually what I was saying.
So I want to get your reaction to this, though. At some point, because Trick Williams has kind of been the face of the NXT brand, especially on the CW, is it going to get to the point where Trick Williams being on NXT is going to get played out and tiresome?
Listen, if it were Carmelo Hayes, right? Let's just use Carmelo Hayes, and we'll just slap Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams situation real fast.
Yeah,
I could see that being a problem.
Yeah.
The thing is as a fan watching, as much as I enjoy Trick Williams, I could still tell there's something about him that's not clicking inside of the ring because he's got the personality. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
If you want to send him up to the main roster, go ahead. It's not that big of a deal. He'll learn as he goes. The thing is if you want him to be fluently ready, consistent, good everywhere that he goes, you give him maybe a year's a stretch. Give him till after WrestleMania. Let him feud up until WrestleMania. Maybe do it after SummerSlam or something like that. You don't got to wait a whole year. But let this guy still develop just a little bit more. Let him have a couple more feuds. Because the thing about Trick Williams is even when I listen to him talk, you remember the baby faces and how sometimes they could be a little cringy?
Yeah, of course.
Trick Williams still has that to me.
I don't think so.
He feels a little... Okay, all right, go ahead. Tell me why.
No, I don't think so. I think that's not how I would analyze the situation. I think Trick Williams just has the aura, and the only slight criticism I would give Trick is just his in-ring ability. But even that, he's improved a lot. But as far as like promos and like character and stuff, I think he connects with the crowd the way he does. This is the thing I actually appreciate the most out of NXT. For some people, it seems forced, but like Trick Williams and Javon Evans, I feel like naturally, even though it's not the most like proper way of WWE doing promos, they kind of go in there and just like do it themselves. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's authentic.
Yeah. Sometimes it just feels, it is authentic. It just sometimes can feel a little cringy to me.
Yeah. I think that's more of I feel like
it's a feeling.
Yeah. That's more of like a personal thing. I don't know. I don't think Trick really has that problem. I think Trick it's hard for me. I don't criticize people's in-ring ability because I'm not a professional wrestler. I don't think that's fair to the wrestlers. But if there's something I'm analyzing about Trick, it's that he's improved a lot in the ring, but I don't think he's all the way there.
His wrestling.
I feel like
his wrestling was always lackluster, though.
Yeah, and he's improved. He's definitely improved. So I don't know where that kind of stems from, but yeah, definitely one of those things where I think Trick's situation is tough. Todd Crow, he's also a member on the channel. He says Obafemi versus Omos. I mean, Omos just went to Pro Wrestling Noah. He won the tag titles there. This is a guy that, you know, he's not doing anything on WWE television. I feel like he should be pushed on WWE television. If they're not going to push him on WWE television, if Triple H is not going to put him on Raw or SmackDown, fuck it, right? Like, fuck it. Just put him on NXT. I have no problem with that either.
I'd have no problem with that.
Yeah. Guys, if you have any questions that you want read on the stream or any comments that you want to make, go ahead and drop a super chat. All of them are guaranteed to be read. Who's going to be the first super chat of the day? I don't know. Maybe we don't get any. Maybe no super chats.
Maybe nobody drops one. Maybe they do. You should. It is what it is. It is what it is. We're here. We're hanging out, Ango.
For sure. So let's talk about the biggest moment for NXT's women's division. Roxanne Perez held the belt just under 300 days. Roxanne Perez drops the belt to Giulia. Just a phenomenal win for Giulia. A phenomenal match, by the way. But the way to kick off this new era for NXT was with an amazing women's match for the title. Giulia is champion, and it looks like at Stand and Deliver, we're probably going to get Giulia versus Stephanie Vicker.
Count me in. Take my money. You got it. Peacock, I'm subscribed.
Yeah, this is...
You want me to say no to that?
I can't imagine somebody saying no to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Although I did have a problem with Stephanie Vicker later in the night that we'll talk about.
Talk about it now.
Stephanie Vicker and the Shotzi Blackheart thing.
Okay.
They go into Ava's office.
Yeah.
Shotzi obviously gets the pin over Fallon Henley.
Yep.
Stephanie just won a fatal four-way match to determine the number one contender for Fallon's Women's North American Championship.
Yeah.
Well, Shotzi comes in and says, "Hey, I pinned Fallon. I think I'm the number one contender."
Yeah.
I get it, but it takes away from the match that Stephanie just had.
So this is how WWE builds up the women's division. There's multiple hunters for the title, multiple people. I think Shotzi being involved is not a bad idea whatsoever. I think Stephanie is not impacted by it whatsoever. I don't think she's impacted by it. I don't think it hurts. I don't even question it. I think they are going to build Stephanie with more wins. I think that's. Okay. I think they're going to start overexposing her a little bit in the sense of keep giving her wins. You got to remember WWE's in the slow burn era, so Stand and Deliver is months and months away. They're going to need Stephanie to do something in the midst of all that. So Shotzi being inserted, right. I think that could kind of become a story. We'll have to wait and see. I don't want to be too reactionary to it yet, but I probably wouldn't worry because, to be honest with you, historically speaking, Shawn Michaels is just like really good with this type of thing. So it's hard to say, obviously.
Yeah, no, we will see, but it is something that I was sitting there and I was just questioning. I was like, I get it and I understand it, right? Because she did get that pinfall over Fallon.
Yeah.
Just overall, I just thought it for a moment it took away from what Stephanie had just done. But I'm a person, I'm willing to trust the process.
Yeah, I think maybe you're being a little reactionary, which is fine. I think you might be a little reactionary at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see how they follow up, right? I think follow up is the most important aspect. I think in WWE situation, especially when you look at tonight, how they follow up with everything is just the most important aspect to it all, honestly. Like it's cool. They click the reset button. They crown new champions. The way Lexis King beats Charlie Dempsey, it's like a really cool way of doing it because of the storytelling and the booking aspect of it all. So I think what's really, really important, though, is what they do next week. Like this week was the reset. Next week is, okay, how do you plan to follow up and what is your actual long-term direction?
Exactly.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I saw from the chat. Chester Franklin Jr. is one of the longtime loyal viewers on this channel. And I noticed,
shout out.
I noticed he's not a member, but I'm going to read this chat because it's just a very interesting thing, right? He says, what about someone from TNA challenge Oba for Stand and Deliver? So
I'm mad at it.
I'm switching gears to Stand and Deliver, and there's a reason why. Because Stephanie Vicker, Giulia, I think that's definitely the direction. I think when it comes to the Heritage Cup, there's a lot of stuff they can do. With the tag team division, we saw the video package earlier for OTM. There's a lot of stuff we can do. But when it comes to the world title scene, this is the area where I'm like, okay, what's the plan? What are we working with? And then it got me thinking TNA is not really in this partnership with WWE as frequently as they were. They haven't really been doing like a talent exchange or anything as of late. So now I'm thinking, would it be a bad idea for WWE to make the call to TNA? And then this is where things get a little bit tricky because I'm trying to think of somebody from TNA.
So, okay,
that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Before you even go, I want to say this. I hear you. I just don't know if it's. So look, I get it. It's cool. You know what I'm saying? And I love the talent exchange, and I think doing it at certain times is appropriate.
Yeah.
But just overall, like when it comes down to like a show like Stand and Deliver, no, I don't think you should make a call to TNA. Because then you're belittling the stars that you already have on your show.
But Billy, they're not building the stars right now.
So that's the thing. That's the problem that we need to fix. And if we're going to fix it, we need to fix it now.
Okay, so how do you fix it right now? Who is on the roster right now that you feel like can easily be a credible challenger for Obafemi?
Credible?
Yeah, right now.
Somebody like Charlie Dempsey. I think he is credible enough.
Do you think Charlie Dempsey right now in this situation after being a Heritage Cup, you think they're gonna? Okay. You think that Charlie Dempsey is gonna be able to go
no.
and be a believable winner?
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have time. Remember, we're in a slow burn era.
Okay.
Start burning that.
Okay.
And start telling me a story.
For sure. But I want you to use a little bit of logic based on how people have been presented or utilized in the last 6 months.
And yes, I can understand that.
Because I can easily say Wes Lee, but Wes Lee, in my opinion,
we've already seen him in Oba.
But it's not even about what we've already seen. We're talking about people in the world title picture that are believable, that are built up to beat Obafemi. The answer that I have is the answer that everybody's going to hate, and it's not even an answer that I agree with. But if there's somebody that they've actually tried to build up as a powerhouse on NXT that can match Obafemi, it's Ridge Holland.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that. I don't like that. And I think that's one of those things where WWE kind of got it wrong. They tried building him up as this heel, as this guy that can, win and be powerful or whatever, but they haven't really done that. And that's what I'm saying. The men's title scene is very lackluster. And I think tonight's episode of NXT was really good, but it exposed the fact that once Oba won this belt, there's really nobody that is truly credible. And maybe making that call to TNA and having that TNA star being featured on television right now.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So if you're saying if we get it started right now,
yeah,
sure. Again, I still hold that problem though. And I don't think anybody can necessarily change my mind on this. I still hold that problem of you are not doing enough with your talent. Don't take away from them. Build somebody on your own roster.
So do you think it's WWE's fault that there's people not necessarily ready for that spot?
I think you're always going to run into a problem like this, no matter what, if you focus on one rather than the other. Look at the way we talk about the women's division on something like Raw, or on SmackDown, or on AEW. We talk about how the women aren't featured enough, and sometimes it could be a little lackluster with the women. They tell good stories, but it's a little lackluster. NXT, we're just so happening to have that problem with the men. That's our problem right now.
Okay. But you think it's coming from a lack of what? Being used?
I think...
what's... Because it
has to be a WWE problem.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay. So the reason why I say it has to be a WWE problem is because it's their show. They're the ones telling these stories.
For sure.
Shawn Michaels is telling these stories. It has to fall on him. Now, I will say this. It also falls on a talent because, talent, they always say you should...
You got to pick one or the other. Talent or WWE? Is it the Booker's fault or is it the talent?
I mean, I'll start off by saying it falls where the higher up is.
Okay.
So I'm saying it's a WWE problem.
Okay. So here's the thing about NXT, and I just pulled up the roster just so I can give you some examples.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a certain extent, I do agree that WWE is the issue, right?
Yeah.
I think leadership in terms of recruiting or developing certain talent has been an issue. I think Eddie Thorpe is a legitimate person that could go for the world title on NXT.
Yep, we talked about that.
Do I think he's ready or as credible or believable to beat Obafemi? No, but based on the last few weeks of television, they can start there, right? But I'm going to give you some ideas.
Go ahead, hit me.
Some of the best talent in NXT right now belong to a faction of some kind. Tony D'Angelo is one that I think could be very, very credible. He's the one
absolutely
who obviously got the North American Championship, and we know there is history between him and Obafemi. So maybe Tony D'Angelo could be in the mix, but it's something we have seen. But if I look at this roster, and I'm going to give you some examples here. Sean Spears, he's kind of got some stuff going on TV, but he's not really winning like singles matches every single week. He's not necessarily climbing the ladder for the world title. Tavion Heights is somebody who went to Pro Wrestling Noah. He did a little bit of an excursion, and he's amazing, right? Like he's an amazing talent. He's really getting good at what he's doing. But Tavion Heights is currently doing the tag team stuff with Miles Bourne. So he's not been presented as a singles guy. Now, other than that, I'm looking at this roster, and I think there's a lot of guys who are just simply not ready to be world champion until the time comes. And that means they have to develop. They actually have to get better. They actually have to improve. They actually have to get over with the crowd. So, for example, like Joe Coffey and Gallus, like Joe Coffey can go for a world title and probably would be relatively good, but at the end of the day, Gallus shouldn't really be in NXT anyways. It's not like Joe Coffey is like this up and coming rising star. So I look at that. I look at, okay, this is a perfect example. Brooks Jensen, talented guy, breaks away from Josh Briggs, but hasn't been built up. He's not really doing things in a way that's like convincing that he would be ready for a world title. I think you can make that argument. Same thing for Andre Chase. I think you can make that argument for Duke Hudson. If you actually look at the NXT roster, it's very thin, and this comes from the standard of how they recruit talent and what they're bringing in. So a lot of these guys.
Can I be honest with you? Can I be honest with you?
No, I want you to lie, Billy.
Too bad. I'm not. I'm here to tell you that no matter what happens and no matter who they choose to build, I'm going to say this, and it might be a hot take, but Obafemi is not going to be champion long. They are going to send him to the main roster.
Wrong, bro. Disagree 100%. No. They have no guys that are credible enough to take the belt off of him. So what's the solution? What's the solution? Move him to the main roster and get the belt off of him? No, they're going to fucking let him hold it forever.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to start building a guy soon because they know they don't want to keep Obafemi down there.
Brother, listen, I'm going to be so real with you. Penta's going to Raw. Penta's going to Raw. Until Rey Fenix comes into WWE, Penta should be going to NXT, going for the world title. He had a sick-ass title reign in 2019 in Impact.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen, but that would have been a solution because WWE could have easily made the decision to say, hey, let's put him on NXT. Let him do some single stuff until Phoenix is there. Okay, Josh Alexander. We don't know if he's going to go to NXT first or Raw, SmackDown, whatever. We don't even know if he'll choose WWE.
So that's what I'm saying. Josh Alexander could easily be somebody you could bring in right now and take that title off of Obafemi.
But do you know what this issue stems from? This stems from WWE not having talent that are developing at a faster rate in the men's division. This also stands to be an issue with WWE for how they recruit talent. So, for example, when Ethan Page came in and immediately got hot-shotted, it's because he filled a void. The thing that a lot of people need to understand here, and this is where WWE NXT truly does struggle, and nobody seems to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. This might ruffle some feathers, unfortunately, but the truth is these NXT developmental contracts are not high paying. So if I was a Josh Alexander, I want main roster money. And the reason why I want main roster money because guess what? AEW is going to offer main roster money. And this is going to be a significant problem for WWE. By the way, with AEW, people need to remember this. AEW just got that new TV deal. Tony Khan has no problem spending money. He spends money like a little kid inside of GameStop. You know, he ain't looking at the prices and shit. You got a gift card for $50. He wants to buy everything. So
yeah, bro's going in there and he's cashing out.
So the thing is, this actually really stems from WWE. You know, they don't have talent that are developing at a rapid rate.
At a fast enough rate.
Yeah, at a fast enough rate. And I think that's part of the reason why it's an issue. It's not because I don't think Dante Chen or Charlie Dempsey or fucking Brooks Jensen or these guys can't become single stars, but they don't have the development as much as Obafemi has. Look at how Obafemi connects with the crowd and compare that to a guy like Brooks Jensen. So I think it's just a situation where that's part of the talent's responsibility to be able to improve enough to the point where they're getting over with the crowd. And sometimes getting over with the crowd happens, like for a guy like Andre Chase and Chase University and everything they've ever built with that. It got over with the crowd. But unfortunately, if you're just looking at it from the perspective of how they booked Andre Chase and how they book Obafemi, there's night and day difference. So I think really what needs to happen is WWE NXT needs to start opening up that checkbook or make the call to TNA until people are developing at a better rate. And also, this is where things need to change a little bit. Miles Bourne is a young and talented up and coming guy. Should he really be stuck in a tag team? No, maybe make the creative change to say, hey, let's try to build this kid up a little bit more as a singles guy. And you know, that causes another problem though. The tag team division needs good tag teams, Tavion Heights and you know, so there's always going to be an area impacted. You can't put all your focus on one thing, but that is definitely, you know, what needs to be said. I will say I'm going to give credit. Sure. I'm going to give credit to Darth Bane in the chat because we have not talked about this. But Darth Bane says, "Where the hell is Hikuleo?" And I think this is a Hikuleo has not.
Tall debuted. Man.
He hasn't debuted in NXT. Man. And listen,
if we're talking about hot shotting,
we're talking about hot shotting. Hot shot him, bro. Now, here's the thing: Hikuleo, he wasn't the best in-ring wrestler in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but who knows what he's developed over in NXT? We don't know.
And that's the thing. There is a different style in WWE. You don't have to be the best wrestler.
I mean, if they're smart, they build it up as like a giant versus giant type of situation.
Yep, perfectly fine with it.
But that's not. That was
shout out to Dark Bane. That's actually a really good one.
But I
didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but we're not thinking about it because he hasn't been on TV. So like you have to make that call.
But Ethan Page wasn't on TV either. So
yeah, he wasn't for sure, of course.
Well,
no, that's not true. Ethan Page made his debut and he started then chasing the belt. He didn't just immediately get in. So they would have to follow the Ethan Page thing for Hikuleo.
Right, yes. Yes.
Bring back squash matches, 2-on-1s, let him go over. That could be a possibility. Yep. Also, I just want to throw this out there too. We got to talk about the transfer portal. Chester brought that up. And I'm looking at NXT and I'm thinking NXT, the only other solution that could help with their men's division is moving some talent from the main roster to NXT. However, what talent do you move from the main roster to NXT?
Yeah, that's a good question because I can't even think of anybody that really sticks out off the top of my head.
Nobody at all.
I mean, there's a lot of people. A lot of people are being utilized on the main roster right now, and I'm trying to think of some names that aren't being utilized.
Okay, so one that's being utilized on TV but not really doing anything of importance is Carlito. And I've said this before several times on the channel. Carlito's a vet. He could go to NXT. I think
you have like somebody like Apollo Crews go back.
So the thing is, Apollo Crews is actually being utilized on SmackDown now. So I would love for him.
I know.
I would love for him to stick around on SmackDown and be built around that mid card title scene. But of course, that is something that you could kind of mention.
Right.
Technically speaking, this is where I kind of get like a little disappointed with WWE because you have Giovanni Vinci, who is not being utilized. He got kicked out of Imperium and they haven't done anything with him. And maybe you could send him to NXT again if you want. Like that could potentially work. I really, really, really hate suggesting this, but he would be good in NXT. And he's been in NXT before. And I would much rather see him as a singles guy. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring in Austin Theory to NXT and help lead the men's division. I don't think he's ever won the NXT
That's actually
title.
A really good tag.
So it wouldn't be a bad idea for Grayson Waller to break off with him. They've teased it before. They haven't committed to it. But maybe you bring in Austin Theory to NXT for a year and then from NXT to the main roster and completely refreshed, rebranded, like that kind of thing.
Really find out what Austin Theory is and what he's about. I'm actually not opposed to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at the roster, a lot of people are in tag teams. I would never want Kevin Owens to get moved. I don't know. It's a tough situation because there's not a lot of people on the main roster. For as much as we say the rosters are bloated, with them adding a third hour to SmackDown and
it really breaks it down a little bit.
It does. So that is something that needs to be mentioned. And right now, the only two free agents in WWE is Brock Lesnar and Omos. And I already said what I said about Omos. So it's tough. I mean, they don't really have a lot of people that can move, and they got to fill some void with injuries as well, which is another thing. I see some people saying Dragon Lee. I don't like the idea of Dragon Lee going back to NXT because I want to see him stay on the main roster and go for the mid-card titles. But, you know, they're definitely going to have to move some people in the transfer portal. And like, they just need to do something. They need to do something. And like, it's really difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really, really difficult in their circumstance because, you know, it's easy to say, oh, Karrion Kross. But now I feel like Karrion Kross is doing so well on the main roster where like going to NXT would kind of be beneath him, right? Like, don't stunt his growth just to save the NXT brand. At that point, NXT needs to figure it out. Really quick, there was a $2 super chat from DRecTube. He says there will be some AEW TNA talent down the line. Yeah, I think definitely, right? Ricky Starks is somebody that often gets rumored. You know, I think some people even look at the situation with Rey Fenix. And listen, if Penta goes off on the main roster as a singles guy, I think Rey Fenix is a singles guy for sure at that point. Like, they're going to just do that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think with AEW, there's rumors of maybe Wardlow once he's cleared and he's free from his contract, he could potentially go. You know, there's a lot of potential AEW or TNA talent that could be on their way out at some point. But as of
problem
January
is we
7th,
don't have time for that right now.
Right now, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And as much as I love NXT, the fact is it hasn't been addressed, and it needs to be addressed. So that's kind of how I look at it. I think when you watch NXT tonight, you see the women and you see what they're doing with, you know, the toxic attraction ripoff, and you see all these things. we can laugh about it, but it's all really good stuff.
Yeah,
it's all really good. And then you got The Rock doing his promo. It's good stuff. But when you have you know, Obafemi winning the belt, it's hard to say, oh, who's going to be that guy to feud with him that's going to be a really good feud. And I know this is going to be an answer that people don't like, but while we're talking about the transfer portal, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing Sheamus going down to NXT.
Nope. That was somebody who did click in my mind there for a moment. But he was somebody that, you know, obviously you see him and Kaiser right now on the main roster. So you know, thinking in my head, I was like, maybe that's a dumb one to say out loud.
I know, but sometimes I look at these guys and I'm like, man, you really want to make NXT the third brand? You bring in a couple heavy hitters, Sheamus will go off.
You got something rolling. Yeah, and he'll have good matches with everybody. Make everybody look good.
Exactly. Shout out to DRecTube for the $2 super chat. We have just a few minutes left, so if anybody has any other super chats they want to drop, get them in now. Billy, last night after the stream, there was like 6 super chats that came in.
I know, they move so fast.
So the thing is, people do this, and I feel like it's a rib on my channel because people are known for doing this. You remember this, bro? People, end stream and then they start dropping them.
Yeah, that's what they always do.
So I don't know what.
Like, yeah, we're gonna go to like 11 o'clock, like 11 or 10:55. They're like, yeah, let's ask every single question under the sun right now.
Dude, it happens. It happens.
It is what it is.
One thing, Travo, best in the world, 434 said, Otis being a guy. I like Otis. I would really love if Otis went to NXT and got repackaged. We
talked about it the other day.
Yeah,
we talked about it the other day on one of our live streams.
Yeah, no, for sure. He just needs to be repackaged, refreshed, taken seriously for sure. Laws says bring back Dijak to NXT. So this is where I was really gonna get to with my whole point. I think WWE fucked up with some of these cuts and some of these people not being re-signed. Like Baron Corbin and Dijak. The fact that they're not on WWE television is kind of
like those are two guys right now that would make something happen.
You know, and the thing is, even if it wasn't in NXT, them being on the main roster then makes room for somebody to leave the main roster to go to NXT.
I agree.
So that is kind of like a weird thing. I saw somebody at one point mention this a long time ago on one of my streams. They were saying WWE should bring back Matt Riddle, put him in NXT, because this isn't the first time I talked about their men's world title scene having an issue. But somebody was like, hey, you could bring back Matt Riddle, bring him back to NXT, keep him in the Performance Center, keep him there for a year, see if he can get his shit together, and then potentially from that point on, you know, if he does get his shit together and he's no longer an issue or a backstage issue, then you can move him up to the main roster again and see that kind of thing. But I think, you know, Triple H kind of said it best recently in the podcast with Jimmy Trina. Doesn't matter. Like, they're always open to a conversation, you know, and When I hear that though, it kind of frightens me because I'm like, well, don't bring back Velveteen Dream, but
Right.
they're kind of saying like
Yeah,
never
you
say
can't be
never.
But you can't be open to everybody.
You can't be open to everybody. And then, here's the thing, man. Like, Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Nick Khan, they were at NXT tonight. First thing I would have done when I left that show has been like, man, we need some great wrestlers back in this company. Let's see whose contracts are up soon. And I would probably call Mia Yim and say, hey, can you tell me when Keith Lee is out of contract?
Yeah, because I can't talk to Keith right now.
Yeah,
but
can you find out when Keith Lee is free?
Just ask a question. Maybe if you sit him down at dinner or something like that. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and the thing is, Andrade's doing some cool shit on the main roster right now with the U.S. title scene, but he would be really good as a NXT World Champion. He would, but we obviously know that he's held it before. He was amazing. He was amazing in NXT. But I really like what he's doing on the main roster right now. Yeah, for sure. I mean, what they need to do is they need to get to the point where the main roster and NXT, they have to find a way to keep what NXT is right now in terms of booking and all of that. But I think they should look at back in the day of when Black and Gold NXT was a thing, how star-studded it was. Because they had the Adam Coles, they had all that, and like that was obviously huge for them. And they don't have that. They actually make a better product today without all of those names. But if they could find a way to blend it,
to mix what that was.
Exactly. Excuse me. Darth Bane says send Dirty Dom to NXT for a year. No, man, he's fucking over on the main roster. You can't.
Oh, yeah, that's not one that I would send down there.
You can't. But yeah, overall, great episode of NXT. I think I think at this point we'll just call it a few minutes early. But really good viewership turned out for NXT. NXT streams never really do that well unless it's a pay-per-view. But there's a lot of views that came in. So I appreciate you guys for coming through. Shout out to D-Rec2 for the $2 super chat. Our only super chat of the night, but it's okay because
what a guy.
That's a cool guy right there. So I appreciate that.
Right.
And maybe we go live for Dynamite. Maybe we think about it. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. They told me on Twitter, don't watch it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. So maybe.
So you don't think you're gonna watch?
I don't know. That's what they're telling me. That's what the streets be saying.
The streets be talking?
That's what they be saying. They say don't watch AEW. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But it's crazy because I like AEW. So
right, exactly.
It is what it is, my friend.
AEW.
Guys, Billy's on YouTube. Follow him, subscribe to him, do all that good stuff. YouTube.com/@BillyTKO. I got it right. I got it right. Yeah, I got it right this time.
I was watching you, bro.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow him. And if anybody drops super chats after the stream, like that kind of becomes a thing. I will just start addressing them to start off the stream, the next stream, if that makes sense. I should have done that for this one, but I'll go back for the final 2 days because that's actually been happening a lot recently. And my channel does get super thanks, which is where you get super chats on specific videos.
Yeah, I got like a $50 one not too long ago.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start just reading those on the streams as well. So that'll be cool. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching the Ango Show NXT live review. Shout out to everybody who subscribed, became a member, and all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yep. Thank you.